Good afternoon to everybody. If you could slowly take your seat, I think we will start soon. Good afternoon, dear delegates, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Solution Forum number 6 of the GSSD Expo 2013 on Action for Greener Economies. My name is Arnaud Brise and I will have the pleasure to moderate this session. I am leading the policy work at the Forestry and Timber section, which is a joint section between FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization, and the ECE, the Economic Commission for Europe. First of all, on behalf of my colleague, I would like to thank the organizers, the Secretariat, as well as UNEP, our hosts, for giving us this opportunity to contribute to the important event GSSD Expo 2013. We are happy to present you today with some of the examples that UNECE developed on green economy in the field of forestry, housing, and public-private partnerships. I'm quite sure you know the FAO. Maybe UNECE is not known. UNECE is the Economic Commission for Europe, and you must know its sister organization, which is the Economic Commission for Africa. And ECE as ECA are one of the two of the 5 economic commissions placed under the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. The ECE overall goal is to facilitate greater economic integration and cooperation among its 56 member states. The ECE region stretches from North America, Vancouver if you want, on the east part, to Vladivostok, so that means Europe, including the Russian Federation, the Caucasus and Central Asia. UNECE also promotes sustainable development and economic prosperity through policy dialogues, the negotiation of international legal instruments, such as the Water Convention, for those who know it, the development of regulations and norms, especially the agricultural standards or in transport, the exchange of best practices and technical expertise and cooperation. While all ECE members should benefit from international cooperation, we pay special attention to the countries with economies in transition, in particular in Eastern Europe, South Europe, the Caucasus and Central Asia. Our aim today is to show how developing countries and countries with economies in transition could make use of some of the tools developed by UNECE to promote stronger and greener economies. We have set up today a panel of 6 experts covering 3 sectors where UNECE developed expertise, which are forestry, housing, and PPPs. The first part will focus on forestry, and I will have the pleasure to brief you on the action plan for the forest sector that we developed recently. This action plan was used as a basis for a forum on forest that took place in Lviv in Ukraine, and Patrick Zieber, here on the right, he has no nameplates, but that's Patrick, will present to you. Then Professor Glavonic, directly on my right, will explain you how you can develop and implement technical cooperation projects for wood energy. And you will see that one of the main challenges for wood energy is to collect reliable data to support policy making. After this presentation, we will leave forests and go to urban areas with Gulnara, who is the head of the UNECE housing unit. So Gulnara on my right, who will brief you on the action plan for energy efficient housing in the ECE region. Again, on the right, Karin Melikidze will then give us the opportunity to discover how a national action plan can be developed with the example of Georgia. Last but not least, at the end of the road, Tony Bonici, our expert on public-private partnerships today, will present you the UNECE International PPP Center for Excellence and also the UNECE work on green PPPs. So we hope that this program that we designed for you today will catch your attention. Each presenter will have 15 minutes presentation to convince you, and you will have 5 minutes to ask questions. In the last 30 minutes, we hope that an active discussion will take place, and we propose you to conclude on 3 questions. The first one will be, what did you learn about regional action plan and public-private partnerships? Second question, do you think you could use this information and tools presented today to develop national tools or policy in your countries? And the third one would be, what are your needs as potential beneficiaries, countries of technical cooperation in the context of an emerging green economy? Some information about the language regime. We have the chance today to benefit from a full interpretation service in all 6 UN languages: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish. So please do not hesitate to ask any question in any of those languages. And now I will begin with my presentation. As I said, I'm leading the work on policy at the EC Forestry and Timber section. I have a background in agronomy, forestry, and environmental science, and I've worked at different levels, local administration to national one, and also multilateral one. Since the end of 2013, I joined the UN and the joint section of FAO and UNECE, which is based in Geneva. So if now I could get on the screen my presentation, it would be good. Thank you. So there will be 2 parts in my presentation. The first one will be on the forest sector in a green economy, the action plan that we developed in Geneva, and also one project that we are also launching in the EC region. But first of all, I would like to come back on the definition of green economy. You may not be aware of the fact that there is no international agreed definition for green economy. However, there is a very good one that has been established by UNEP, for which green economy is one that results in improved human well-being and social equity while reducing environmental risks and ecological scarcities. In its simplest expression, green economy is low carbon, resource efficient, and also socially inclusive. If you want to apply that to the forest sector, it means that in every aspect of its activity, it should minimize its carbon emission, use its resource efficiently, and also be socially inclusive. Why trying to put the focus on the forest sector for the green economy? It is because forests play a crucial role for development in general. First of all, forests cover 1/3 of the global land area. That means that in a lot of countries, whatever you do, whatever infrastructure, whatever development project you have to deal with forests, because you need land, because you need timber, because you need a source of energy. Also because forests provide livelihood for 1.6 billion people. That means that 1.6 billion people depend directly or indirectly on forests for their living. Those forests that protect and maintain 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity. The forests provide renewable wood products for material use and also for energy purposes. They provide food, medicines, and other non-wood products, but they also provide services such as protection of water, soils, landscape, and recreation. Why our parent bodies, that are the EC Committee on Forests and the forest industry, and also the FAO European Forestry Commission, asked us to develop an action plan for the forest sector in a green economy? It was because the delegates were convinced that we need to demonstrate how the forest sector can contribute to the transition to a green economy. because there is a need to share best practices and promote policies. But last but not least, there is a need to communicate the achievements of the forest sector to the general public, to policymakers, and also to other sectors. This slide is to show you that this was a long process that began end of 2010, and we are nearly at the end, because we hope that this document will be adopted at our big meeting to be held in Rovaniemi, Finland, in December 2013, and called Metsä 2013. Metsä meaning forests in Finnish. So we had a series of consultations with 2 stakeholders meetings, 3 intergovernmental meetings, a lot of other conferences where we could present and further elaborate the document. And it's easy, it's an action plan. So we have developed a series of objectives with the stakeholders and a list of action to achieve those objectives. Of course, this action plan is voluntary and non-binding. Excuse me. International organizations, governments, private sector, or civil society at large can choose to implement or not to implement it. But with the different meetings, we identified possible actors that also, most of them, confirm their commitments for the implementation of this action plan. We identified different principles that we would like the forest sector apply, maybe by 2020, even if it's not a strong deadline, but it's important to fix the horizon. First of all, that the forest sector uses and reuses wisely its resources, that it contributes to the mitigation of climate change and cares for its workforce. I will come back later to it, but for example, in our region, 20 to 25% of the workforce, the forest workforce, is over 50. That means in the next 10, 15 years, we have to renew a fourth or a fifth of this workforce. The forest sector should take all externalities into account when taking decisions that should be based on evidence and science, of course. The action plan is built on 5 pillars. The first one on sustainable wood consumption and production, the fact that the forest sector should be a low-carbon one. The third one, very important, on the social aspect and the decent green job approach that I will present you in the next slide. The fourth one on ecosystem servicing, and the fifth ecosystem services, and the fifth one on monitoring and governance. Why, for example, if I take the example of the green jobs, why is it so important? If you ask foresters or people from the forest sector, most of the time they would explain you that they are green, they produce green products, renewable products, they try to sustainably manage their forests. In doing so, they improve the energy and raw material efficiency, they limit greenhouse gas emission, they try to minimize waste, etc., while supporting the adaptation of the forest to the effects of climate change. So yes, in those aspects, forestry jobs can be green jobs. But first of all, to be green jobs, they have to be decent jobs. And for that, there are a series of conditions that have been developed by the International Labour Organization, which involves a fair income, security in the workplace, prospects for development, personal development, freedom and equality of treatment, for example. So, of course, this is a bit redundant if we are talking about decent green jobs, but the discussion with the stakeholders showed that it was important to put the emphasis on decent. So for this pillar, it's also quite easy. We have defined one goal, which is that the first work should be able to implement sustainable forest management, and that the forest sector should contribute to achieving the social goals of the green economy. And for that, the strategy is the following. We have first to train a skilled workforce to ensure safety and health condition on the work site, and also to make sure that the the forest operations are environmental friendly and also efficient. It is quite simple also in its structure. We have a list of possible action and a list of possible actors. And as I said, we think this will be adopted at the end of the year in Rovaniemi. Now I will come to my second part, the second part of my presentation. Sorry if I rush a little bit, but I have only 15 minutes. These projects come from the fact that we realize that in countries with economies in transition, the full potential of forest needs to be unlocked. Forest degradation remains a serious threat throughout this region, I mean Caucasus and Central Asia, and it sometimes leads to deforestation and severe erosions. That means big impacts for the national economies and also for the standards of living of the local population. The key challenges are fragile institutions, limited financial capacity and human capacity, and also scattered and unreliable information. This allowed us to build the different parts or elements of these projects, which are focused on better data collection, so getting better data collection for better policymakers, with stronger policies and institutions. We will have a coaching program for 3 countries to develop action plans for the forest sector. The overall aim being to have on the market more sustainable forest products, including for bioenergy, while better protecting the forests. The idea being to support the potential of the forest sector for greening the economy. The expected outputs are quite traditional for this kind of projects, UNDA projects, UN Development Account projects. First of all, enhanced knowledge in those countries, and second, improved capacity for sustainable forest management. We have a rather small budget, so if even some donors in the room that would like to match this budget, we would be really happy to cooperate. We have $500,000. And we are working with government officials of Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. The implementing organization are UNECE and FAO, and this will take place between 2013 and 2015 with around 40 regional, national, and local workshops. So if you are more interested, I'm not the program manager for this project, but please send me your request and I will do my best to get you the answers. So I've finished now with my presentation. We have some time for some questions. So if you had any question, please, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any flags or any hands raised, so, sorry, excuse me, please.
I can ask one. Yeah, my name is Aska Nyangeri from Kenya. Now, I picked that there is a lot of forest degradation in those countries, and there are employment, and there are some people who are employed in those in the forest sector. Now, what are you doing? What are you doing to give alternative employment? Alternative employment, because I gather now that forest is very important, very important. Now I understand why Wangari Maathai was really fighting for afforestation in Kenya and fighting former governments, and she was being fought and they were fighting. Now I understand the importance of forest. Now in your presentation, you are telling me there are people who are seriously engaged in this forest activities. It means they are cutting down trees for their personal use, and so what are you doing about providing alternative employment to save forest for future generations? Asante.
If I understand well, your question is it about alternative employment outside the forest sector? Because I mean, I'm coming from the Economic Commission for Europe, and where we are convinced that we can sustainably manage forests. That means that we are not against harvesting forests. We have to do it sustainably. There are some forests that have to be completely protected, but there are some forests we can sustainably manage, and from where we can use the timber. And deforestation is surely a very big problem, but we can demonstrate with a lot of projects that if you make the right training, those people won't lose their job, because they will get a job. They will only work differently and within the legal regulation, which are based on sustainable forest management principles. So the idea is not to find alternative for those people. The idea is to provide them with the training and the general framework so that they can use the forest sustainably. Okay, another question? Thank you.
Hi, my name once again is Patrick Kamodo from East African Climate Change Network. In regards to forest and the need to recapture the desertification in parts of Africa, is it advisable that people focus on using genetically modified trees to address this problem? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm a bit outside of my field of expertise, but I will answer you what we are doing now in Europe. We don't know. We don't know about genetically modified trees. We're not sure. We are sure that there are some potential, but we are not sure of the consequences. So, for example, in our next program of work that will run from 2014 to 2017, we will organize a big conference in Europe to assess advantages and disadvantages of genetically modified trees, to see if we could recommend or not recommend the use in certain cases of genetically modified trees for forestry. But for the moment, this at least in Europe, this approach is not very popular, and we unfortunately have no guidelines or no strong feelings about them, but we are working on it. Thank you. I suggest that now we move on to the second presentation of Mr. Patrick Sieber. Patrick is working for the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, SDC, and is the Global Program Climate Change Officer there. And he was co-organizing with us the Lviv Forum on Forest in a Green Economy, and where a lot of interesting thoughts were made about enhancing the contribution of the forest in a green economy. So, thank you, Patrick, for explaining us how you did that.
Thank you very much, Arno, for the introduction, and good afternoon to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here and to present over the coming few minutes, give you some insights on the Lviv Forum on Forests in a Green Economy that has been organized in fall 2012. Arno already introduced the role of forests and ECE's work, and I hope that with my explanations I can give you an example, having a look at the concrete example of such a regional forum and what came out of it. So for the coming minutes, I will talk about the Lviv Forum on Forests in the Green Economy, actions and challenges for the countries of Eastern Europe and Northern and Central Asia. Let me start with the rationale or the objectives of the Lviv Forum. We heard that the forest sector is very often seen as having a potential for playing an exemplary role in future green economies. So that's a bit the basis we start from. It's a concept, and the important thing is to break down this concept and try to come to a point where things can get operationalized. And that was exactly one of the aims of, or the most important aim of this regional forum that has been organized in the city of Lviv in Ukraine in September 2012. It brought together stakeholders and policymakers from countries in Eastern Europe and Northern Central Asia, together with international experts to discuss the challenges and the options, and to jointly review what an emerging green economy could mean for the forestry sector under these special circumstances that we find in these countries, in this part of the world. Aim was to work out the vision and also come up with a number of messages that I'm going to present in the following slides. The whole thing has been set up as a country-led initiative by, jointly organized by the governments of Ukraine and Switzerland, and was supposed to be a support of the United Nations Forum on Forest processes. It was based on the action plan of the forestry sector in the green economy that was being developed at that moment by UNECE and FAO, and it provided, or it contributed to the further development of that. The event has been conducted with a strong support by international organizations, by UNECE, by the United Nations Forum on Forests, by the Program on Forests, by the World Bank, and also Forest Europe. It was conducted as a 3-day workshop, and a lot of time was actually spent discussing in group works, bringing the different stakeholders together. And we also had the possibility to organize a 1-day field trip, which allowed the participants coming from a broad region to get acquainted with the situation in Ukraine. This field trip, or 3 different field trips in fact, focused on 3 different topics: close to nature forestry, on wood processing, and on the possibilities of ecotourism. 150 participants covering the countries of Eastern Europe, Northern and Central Asia were joining the event. They were split up into 4 sub-regional groups: the Balkans, Caucasus and Turkey, Eastern Europe and North and Central Asia. And these groups were discussing along 4 sub-theme work streams, which were sustainable forest industries and products, forest ecosystem services and the role of forests in low-carbon economies, employment and livelihood opportunities, and the important topic of forest governance. The regional Lviv Forum allowed the participants and a broader audience to better understand the regional key issues and trends by having these exchanges, to help them to strengthen the cooperation and enhance partnerships among the countries and involved key stakeholders, and as most important element, to come up with recommended actions and to strengthen forest policy, institutions and practices in support of a green economy. So to come up with the Lviv Forum's vision and messages for action that I'm going to present in the following. Let us quickly have a look at some of the main issues and challenges for the forest sector in the region that has been covered by this workshop. The region that we are talking about encompasses roughly 20% of the world forests or forest resources, so it's not to be neglected. But we find in this sample of countries very differing national situations. We have very small countries like Montenegro, we have big countries like Russia, and the same is true for the forest cover. There are countries that have hardly 5% of their territory covered by forests, whereas others have a larger amount. Common to all of them is that the forest sector is only providing a small contribution to the GDP, the gross domestic product. And also common to most of them is that they find themselves in transition processes from previous political systems. If one would have to identify a number of issues and challenges for the forest sector in these regions, one could mention the remoteness and lack of infrastructure. That is a fact for many of them. Then the transition and the change in structures and society that is actually taking place. For many countries, unfortunately, illegal logging and related trade is quite an important element, and there is a lack and threat to protective functions of forests in many of these countries that we're talking about. And last but not least, there's a big lack of priority for forest sector and national development plans in most of these countries covered. Just to give you a short overview, this is the region that has been covered, and as I mentioned before, the territory has been grouped into, or the countries have been grouped into subgroups: Balkans, Caucasus and Turkey, Eastern Europe, North and Central Asia, for the discussions. Let me go straight into the jointly agreed vision and messages that the forum was able to come up with. And it followed it came up with 10 different key messages. The first one is capture the true value of forests. Decision making on forests in a green economy needs to be based on true economic value, on all the biological and social functions that forests are able to satisfy, including also non-monetary values. Proposed actions are to further identify parameters and collect data that will better capture the entire spectrum of these functions, and use this additional information to develop policies or adapt policies and management plans, and also to target public and private investment to stimulate forests and forest sector, and develop structural regional plans to realize all the priorities and the potentials of forests. The second message that came out of the forum was use all resources efficiently. In many cases, the full economic potential of non-timber forest products, for example, and also recreational and social functions of forests is left untapped. Resource efficiency can still be further improved, for example, by the creation of better incentive systems, and also by investments into green technologies and innovations. Proposed actions in this field the forum was able to come up with were to identify the economic and social and environmental functions provided by forests, to have a good overview, and then to set up systems for payment for environmental services, for ecosystem services provided. And here also to think about services that are provided at the regional level. And maybe specific to this particular part of the world, invest further in transport infrastructure, which is very often a bottleneck in the countries considered. The third key message was be energy-wise. Forests can be an important source of energy that is renewable and carbon neutral, and as such it can be an important basis for an emerging economy. We'll hear more on that in a minute. The forum also advised to be careful that the use of forest resources for energy should be carefully addressed in places where availability is limited and where it might compete with other uses of this resource. So the proposed action in this field was to identify economic, social and environmental functions provided by the forest, again to have an overview, and then to develop national energy policies that include the potential of wood energy, and to adapt the use to the scarcity of the situation in the given country. And as additional measure, to adopt highly efficient, modern and clean energy technologies. Special focus should be given, or special attention should be given to the issue of microparticles. The fourth key message that came out of the forum was make jobs decent and green. Sustainable forest management requires sustainable workforce. And the green economy, the challenges that are linked to putting in place a green economy requires new skills from employees of the forest sector. So making the forest sector jobs decent and green requires workforce issues to be taken up at the policy level. Proposed action in this would be to put in place an effective control and implementation of labor laws and regulations that already exist, and to improve social conditions of those employed in the forest sector, and to further work on occupational safety and health, in particular for forest workers. The fifth key message that came out of the forum was address threats to forests. In the long run, only healthy forests can provide the sustainable goods and services that contribute to a green economy. So there's a need to deal with the threats such as climate change. We can think about storms, droughts, fires, pests, or also invasive species and human activities. So forest management planning and research and practice needs to at the same time include both aspects: adaptation of forests to climate change or to the expected consequences of climate change, and their contribution, the potential contribution that they have to climate change mitigation. The forum called on, in particularly, enhancing transboundary cooperation in forest protection issues in this field. Sixth key message was to define governance principles and stick to them. Good governance of the forest sector or in the forest sector is a prerequisite for sustainable development and its contribution to the green economy. We're talking here about key factors like participation, questions of accountability, transparency, equity and fairness, efficiency and effectiveness, and also rule of law. The proposed action here would be to further develop the institutional capacities to improve the sustainable management of forests. In the first instance, this could mean implement existing commitments. Just to name one example, the St. Petersburg Declaration on Forest Law Enforcement and Governments, and then also do activities to combat illegal logging and related trade. There's often a need to modernize legal and regulatory framework for the forest sector, and also very often it is advisable to transfer decision-making power to local levels in the sense of a decentralization. The seventh message was to update skills, addressing the emerging challenging relating to forest sector in the green economy requires a comprehensive understanding of the multiple functions of forests. New trends require regular updates, also for qualified foresters, and a system of continued training. There's further a need to improve often rudimentary training for manual forest workers. Proposed actions here include provide the possibility for continuing learning that shows the links to other sectors as well. That could be reform and implement comprehensive and multi-level training and education programs, and in particular also strengthen vocational training possibilities. The eighth key message was to innovate and build partnership, joining forces with other sectors for creation of new opportunities, in particular public-private partnerships, and we'll hear more on that in a minute, and other forms of cooperation between public and private sectors can result in innovative products and might provide or create new markets. Proposed actions here include facilitate and support new cross-sectoral partnerships with related fields, for example, agriculture, wood-related energy, water, just to name a few, and also to support the transfer of innovative technologies. The ninth message was to cooperate across boundaries. Countries and stakeholders can benefit from addressing common regional issues across boundaries. So joint strategies and the exchange of knowledge and experience is important at regional and global levels. Proposed action here is to develop regional guidelines for the forest sector in the green economy that takes into account the specific regional circumstances. So to go a bit into the direction the forum has been going. And the last message, finally, from the forum, make a case for the forest sector's role in a green economy. The forest sector needs to receive more attention to play an exemplary role and leading role in the move towards a green economy. There's a need to make a case for the sector by better illustrating its role, contributing to issues such as clean water, food supply, renewable energy, etc., that are all essential for a green economy. Proposed actions here included to take a lead in raising awareness about the forest sector's potential and the challenges, and to contribute also to the implementation of the action plan for a forest sector in a green economy. This has been, in a nutshell, the outcome and the processes of the Lviv Forum on Forests in a Green Economy. If you are interested in having more information about the process and the product, I strongly encourage you to visit the website that has been set up. You can assess it, for example, through the website on the UNECE web page. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Patrick. So we have time for 2 or 3 questions. Yes, madam?
Yeah, my name is Aska from Kenya. Thank you for your presentation. Unfortunately, you have not given us the target you want to achieve. Here in Kenya, Professor Wangari told us we have to achieve 10%. Now, we are planting trees very seriously. Logging is not allowed. Anybody in activities with the forest, illegal activities is not allowed. What is your target in Eastern Europe and in Asia? I think you must have a target. Right now, you are not telling me of when the target. What did the St. Petersburg Declaration say about, didn't mention about the target? Here in Kenya, we have a target. We have lessons you have to learn from us, much as we want, you are telling us also to learn from you. Kenya presents a very good lesson for you to learn from. We no longer entertain illegal logging. We are on target. We have reached 7% in our forest cover. We are soon reaching 10%. This is because of Professor Wangari Maathai's advice to the world and to us. Now we have saved Mau Forest, we have saved the Karura Forest, Mount Kenya Forest, rivers which didn't have water before, now they have water. Asante, thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think we agreed with Patrick that I could maybe answer you by giving you 2 pieces of information. First of all, we made 2 years ago a study on the forest policies in our region, and half of the countries, half of the 46 countries that were interviewed for this study declared that they want to increase their forest area. So sometimes it goes very fast in some countries such as Spain or Turkey, and sometimes it's very low, and in some cases there's a very little number, but there are 2 countries where the forest area is decreasing in Europe. So there are targets, but we are not setting them at the regional level. It's the countries that are setting them themselves for their territories, because forest policy is a sovereign matter. Sorry?
You are telling us that it's a sovereign matter, so you cannot interfere to say, let us all countries adopt one target.
It's always difficult to have one target for all countries. One size fits all. It's very difficult, especially when it comes to forestry. But another important piece of information is the fact that the European region is developing a convention on forest in Europe. There will be next week, the 4th session of the convention, where there will be targets, etc. But again, there is no figure. The countries, they agreed on principles, they agreed on criteria, but there's no indicators. Indicators will come at a later stage, but it's very difficult for countries to agree on very precise targets. So maybe in the future we will get them, but for the moment we don't have regional targets. Thank you, sir. Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you once again. Generally, also my observation will go towards when we are speaking about forest and the targets in regards to carbon consumption. We understand that right now, almost the entire of Africa, people have patented some areas with very fertile land. A case in example is Tana Delta, which holds 30% arable land of Kenya country. So we are wondering whether in Global South-South we are realizing that people are patenting where you can plant this tree. When you go to international market, there is a possibility you cannot get the benefit from that carbon in itself. Thank you.
I'm not sure I understood your question. Could you please reformulate it? I'm sorry.
It's about carbon trading. Generally, when we are speaking about reforestation, other people are trading about what the trees are consuming, so, and what they are emitting in the air. So we are wondering, when in Africa, like say in Global South, we do a lot of reforestation, then when it comes to international market, different people are benefiting from that. And you know about carbon trading, it's about those well connected are dealing on that international market. But here in Global South, I really think very few people who know there is such a thing going on.
Yes, your point is that there are very few people that can, in fact, benefit for carbon trading and for the return of afforestation. Of course, carbon is something that can finance afforestation. That's not the only way, but it's today one of the main ways to finance afforestation if you use international projects. I mean, we don't have the answer in Europe, I must say, because as you must know, Europe, most of our country, or the majority of our country are not eligible to those projects as developed countries. So I cannot give you any information. So maybe Patrick, who is a specialist on climate change, could help us.
Thank you. I would just like to point out, I have been mentioning the update of skills, which is requested also to making the full use of the new potentials that are giving for about forests in a green economy. So I think what you have been mentioning and this lack of knowledge and about how things work should be addressed under this point as well, which came out as a clear recommendation from this regional exchange in Lviv, where people realized we lack certain knowledge in order to be able to benefit from the new potentials and possibilities that are given, that are coming up, and where they felt a bit excluded. So I think it's I very much agree with what you have been pointing out to.
The last question, yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, my name's Ali Olum from Kenya. I think in this eradication of poverty, forest plays a bigger role. And here, there is, I think we are losing the sight of an antelope for a squirrel, because here the government is not playing a bigger role in this. Because I'm seeing when I say government, it's my government, my country's government and your country's government is not playing a bigger role in this. Because the reason why I'm saying that is, like here in this forum, you find that there's no government officials that are involved here. They were here one day, they disappeared. Right now, you cannot see them. So my question is, who should play a bigger role in this? Is it the government, then the NGOs follows, or is it the NGOs, then the government follows? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this point, pointing out that who should play which role. I think all the different parties have their part to play in the game. And I think I would like to link this point also to the last message that came out of the Lviv Forum, make a case for the forestry sector. I think very often it's not that much of disinterest, but it's very often that all the possibilities that are offered also by the forest sector are not widely known. If people would know more about also to which kind of services on which humankind depend would be known, I think they would also receive greater attention and attract also the attention, more of attention from policymakers and government officials.
Okay, thank you for your questions, but I think now we have to move on to the third presentation. So, on my right, Branko. Branko had to leave his student earlier on Monday to be here with us today, so thank you very much for running to the airport. Branko is one of the most reliable delegates we ever had in Geneva. He was even chair of our committee for 3 years. Is a well-recognized expert, not only in Serbia, but also in Eastern Europe for the wood energy issues. And I'm sure he will give us a very interesting presentation now. Thank you, Branko. Can we have the... Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, R. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear delegates. I'm honored to be participants at this big event and to have opportunity to present you regional and national cooperation project for wood energy in Southeast European countries. This region has become a very interesting region for foreign investors, especially in wood energy, from West European countries. I divided my presentation in 5 items. In the first item I will introduce you about main indicators as well as the regional position of this region. The second item covers the role of wood energy to green economy in this region. Regional and the national cooperation project for wood energy in Southeast European countries represent the third item of my presentation. The fourth is the contribution of the wood energy Southeast European country to the green economy, and the last is the future development, some point of view. Southeastern Europe is the region of 7 states on the territory among the rivers Sava and Danube, the Alps and the Carpathian Mountains, and Adriatic and Black Sea. The total area is around 283,000 square kilometers with 26.5 million of inhabitants. GDP per capita is different from country to country, starting from $3,616 US dollars in Albania to $23,000 in Slovenia. Now, I'd like to highlight the role of wood energy to green economy in Southeast European countries. First of all, I'd like to mention renewable and available source of energy for heating and cooking especially. The huge number of households in these countries, as well as for power and heating in the central heating systems. Wood is local available as well as secure fuel supply. Wood energy, the clean energy, which contribute to the mitigation of the climate change through substitution of non-renewable energy. This role is very important role for these countries, especially in the segment of district heating systems. There are a lot of examples in these countries of district heating system based on non-renewable fuels like coal and heating oils. Wood energy represents a great opportunity for rural development through raw material supply chain, as well as the local and national economy, like taxes, incomes, and reducing energy dependency. This role is very important segment of wood energy systems in these countries, especially for households in rural area. Of course, wood energy enables to implementation of the new technologies as well as energy efficiency in the segment of the households as well as in the public buildings. Forestry represent the main base or has a very important role for wood energy systems in these countries. On this slide, you can see the main indicators of the forest sector in those countries. The total forest area of this region is 11.6 million hectares with 1.4 billion tons of biomass, as well as 1.7 billion cubic meter of growing stocks. Participation of forests of Southeast European countries in total forest in Europe is 1.15%, and the participation of growing stock of Southeast European countries in total growing stock in Europe is 1.6%. But I'd like to mention that this region is very important region for some wood species like oak and beech for most or huge number of enterprise and industry in Western countries, Western European countries. These three international organizations have very important role for wood energy market development in these countries. Now I'd like to highlight their roles separately. The main scopes of realization of FAO project in the region of Southeast European countries are to enhance the role of forestry sector to a green economy, to improve the capacities of the forestry service, to develop inter-institutional programs, to develop wood energy policy and plans. This is very important segment to improve knowledge of wood energy system in these countries. In the FAO project realized in the region, it was used the wisdom methodology for identification of the potentials of biomass and its real consumption, as well as for mapping and analyzing of the participation of wood energy in total final energy consumption. This methodology is established by FAO and especially from Mr. Miguel Trocero. To date, the FAO wood energy project have been realized in 4 countries of this region. In Slovenia from 2003-2004, in Croatia from 2006 to 2009, in Serbia 2009-2010, and the last in Montenegro in 2013. Some words about the main outputs of this project. I will start from Slovenia. The main outputs of the Slovenian wood energy project is established the geodatabase of potentials as well as consumption of woody biomass, and the special segment represent the Slovenian wood energy information systems. FAO wood energy project realized in Croatia oriented to sustainable charcoal industry and the sustainable charcoal production. The main objectives of this project were preparation of the modernization and the revitalization program for the charcoal industry and developing the wood energy information system through the wisdom methodologies. Some outputs of the wood energy system, wood energy project in Serbia. The overall objective of the project was to enhance the capabilities of the Directorate of the Forest, Ministry of Agriculture, Forest and Water Management for the formulation, evaluation and development of sound bioenergy strategy, programs and the project compatible with the sustainable management of the forestry, energy and agriculture sector, plus 3 additional outputs. The first, established the Serbian wood energy information systems in close collaboration with the National Energy Agency. The second, capacity building activities, the special for the staffs of the ministry and other institutions. And the third, National Wood Energy Action Plan developed for the increased wood energy production and utilization as an environmentally friendly source of energy that is integrated within the forestry and energy programs. Some outputs of the last realized wood energy project in Montenegro. This project encompassed the following elements: the mapping of all elements important for consumption of woody biomass, like potential consumption, export, import, prices, etc. Creation of the base for the information system for wood energy utilization, socio-economic aspects of wood energy, analysis of the woody biomass market, wood energy technologies, legal aspect of production, trade and utilization of wood fuels, and dissemination of the knowledge and strengthening of public awarenesses. Beside 3-4 project, the new FAO project for the rest 3 countries, Albania, Macedonia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, is being prepared. It should be started at the beginning of 2014. The main goals of the project are similar to the goals of the already realized project. The first, observing of actual potentials of woody biomass, observing the actual consumption of wood fuels and the related consumption of wood energy for heating households, public facilities, industry, and other consumers categories. The production of the new national energy balances for wood and wood fuels, and strengthening of professional capacity of staffs in forest administration, as well as of staff in the Ministry of Energy and official statistics. Energy community for the Southeastern Europe plays active role in the region. Its activities encompass defining of the national targets in participation of energy from renewable sources in the total final energy consumption until 2020, the support to the countries of the region in achieving these targets in all areas related to renewable sources, including wood energy also. The big regional project with the aim to determine the actual situation in participation of energy from renewable sources in total final energy consumption in all countries of the region was realized in the period 2011-2012. Its results were the base for definition of the national targets for renewable energy for 2020 in all countries. This table shows the separately renewable energy targets for each country, starting from 11% in Ukraine to 40% in Bosnia and Herzegovina. GSSD represents very important international organization for wood energy market development in these countries. GSSD established the open regional funds for energy efficiency. Through these funds, GSSD supports regional initiatives in Southeast Europe in its effort to systematically advance more efficient use of energy in its respective countries. GSSD provides advisory support for the work of the energy efficiency task force in which representatives of the ministry is responsible for energy issues for together, and particularly support the development of a platform for monitoring and verifying measures defined in the respective National Energy Efficiency Action Plan. Now, I'd like to mention some benefits of the international projects for these countries. First of all, I'd like to mention knowledge transfer to and capacity building of domestic staff. This is a very important benefit. Implementation of internationally recognized methodology, I will explain later. Conduction of comprehensive research in all segments important for production and consumption of wood energy. Identification of the new areas for the utilization of wood energy like CHP and district heating systems. New energy balances for wood energy as well as for renewable energy sources. This benefits is very important for this country to achieve the 2020 targets. Adopted action plan for renewable energy sources and reliable data for policy makers. What mean reliable data? I will explain in case study of Serbia. As the results of the implementation of the new methodology through the FAO project, wood energy consumption of 1.36 million ton of oil equivalent in 2010 was identified. This quantity is the 4.9 times bigger in comparison with officially recorded data by Serbian Statistical Office. This fact shows that implemented methodology has the high level of reliability and that rich results are statistically relevant for all analysis for policy makers. Some words about contribution of the wood energy in Southeast European countries to green economy. The contribution of the forest sector to green economy may be observed in different ways. For this presentation, I've chosen two ones. The first, contribution of the wood energy to achieving the national target 2020 regarding its participation in total final energy consumption, and the second one, contribution of the wood energy to new investment, employment, and environment. Wood is the leading source of renewable energy in Southeast European countries. These figures show the participation of wood energy total final energy consumption in these countries. For example, the participation in wood energy in Serbia in total final energy consumption in 2010 was 13.6%, in Montenegro 22%, in Albania 11%, in Bosnia and Herzegovina 21%, in Macedonia 16%, and in Croatia 16% also. On this figure you can see the regional distribution of the pellets production and capacities in this region. As you can see, there are 62 pellets plants with capacities of over a half million ton annually. The total production in 2012 was around 400,000 tons. In this sector, we identified over than 2,000 green jobs in production and wood supply chain. And some words about the future development. The markets of wood fuels are differently arranged depending on the country. The governments of certain countries have a tendency to open some space with their measures for the use of wood fuels and wood energy in the systems of public importance, primary and district heating system through the process of the replacement of the light, oil and coal in these systems. In the segment of regulation regarding the trade and use of wood fuels, markets are insufficiently arranged in the most countries, and the situation is expected to be improved in the following years due to the fact that almost all governments of these regional countries adopted the action plan for renewable energy sources, which stipulate adequate measures for the elimination of the existing barriers and upgrade of the situation on the market of renewable energy sources. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Branko, for this exhaustive presentation. Now I will allow for two questions, if there are some. Yeah. One there, and
Yeah.
first, Mr. Sir on the right, and then.
Okay, I'm Steve from Kenya, and my questions goes to the panelists, because actually what I've heard you speaking, you are speaking of the countries that are in Europe. I don't know where Africa is based, or what we have come here is to implement. Then we say that we are in Africa, yet Africa is not benefiting in this green economy. So my question is, where is Africa based in this thing we are calling green economy? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It is difficult for me to answer for your question because I explained the role of wood energy in green economy in Southeast European countries. I think probably we can use the similar experience for developing the green energy market in your countries. For example, we used recommendation and suggestions and policy. Of course, we accepted the policy of the European Union in our countries. So I think we can open discussion where is the Africa in this process through the United Nations system.
Thank you. Yes, madam.
Yeah, I have looked at that presentation. Thank you for it. But I've realized there is no mechanism for monitoring and evaluation. I have captured the idea that in those countries, their main source of energy is wood. I mean, from the forest. You don't use oil, not even solar. And there is no monitoring and evaluation how you are using those forests. While in down south in Africa, we have been told by the European countries, plant trees. And we are doing that. Yourself, I don't think you are doing, you are just consuming. You are just consuming. Whereas you are soon going to finish your forests. You are going to finish them, and you will be depending on us. Yes. We have a lot of experience from Professor Wangari Maathai's foundation, organized the Green Belt, and from the Kenya government. We have a lot of information, a lot of experience for you to learn from before you go away from Kenya after this conference. Please learn what the Kenya government is doing, what Wangari Maathai's Green Belt is doing. It's doing a very good job. You are soon going to have your forest finished. What will happen? You are not importing oil. You are not using solar. You are not using any source of energy. Your source of energy is those forests, asante.
Okay. Thank you for this statement, which is more a statement than a question, but I will try still to answer a little bit. First of all, there is a mechanism for monitoring and assessment in our region. It's called Forest Europe. We produce every 5 years a report which is called the States of Europe's Forest. If you go on our exhibition stand, you will have the summary for policymakers of this report. In this report, we show that the forests in the European region are quite in good states, that they are still expanding. We have this chance and we have a resource. So the best thing would be to use it, to sustainably use it for the needs we have in the region. Of course, you cannot push for the development of renewable energy based on wood if you will not make sure that the origin of the wood is legal and sustainable. That's a prerequisite, and maybe we didn't spend enough time to mention and to stress this, but this is a fact. Countries report regularly, and there are, as I told you, only two exceptions in our region, two countries which I won't name here, but two small countries where the forest area is decreasing. In all other countries it's developing thanks to afforestation or thanks to natural progression of forests in our territories. So I remember when I was a French civil servant, a sentence of our president Nicolas Sarkozy saying, "You are sitting in a pile of wood and you do nothing with it," which was not true, of course, but maybe you don't know, but we've made also another story which is called the Joint Wood Energy Inquiry in the EC region, which shows that half of the renewable energy used in our region come from the wood. Of course, we use solar, of course, we use wind and geothermia, but wood and wood from forest areas is and still remain the first source of renewable energy.
I'd like to add one additional comment. First of all, thank you for your observation. I fully agree with your observation that the monitoring is a very important segment of these activities. I'd like to mention that the sustainable production and consumption, as well as monitoring, represent two bases for all activities adopted in our national action plan for renewable energy sources.
Thank you. I would like now, if you agree, to leave the forest behind us and go for housing. So Gulnara Roll on my left will present the action plan for energy efficiency housing in the UNECE region. Gulnara is the head of the Housing and Land Management Unit in Geneva. She has worked in different positions and lately as environmental affairs in ECE, but also at INTAS, which is an agency which promotes research cooperation between Europe and former Soviet Union in Brussels. Gulnara, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. I'm very glad to be here today and speak to you a little bit about our work on the housing and land management. I would like to say that housing in Africa, in Europe, is a very complex issue. I mean, it's a very important issue for each of us here in this building and anywhere else, but it's also a very complex issue. We as a committee conducted a survey where we asked the member states and the experts who is involved in the management of the housing. And you see, to compare it to the, for instance, area of even forestry or especially environment, where mostly governments are involved, housing actually is a very, very complex area where housing are working with the regulations. Still, the governments are working with the regulations and developing the laws. Municipalities play, as you know, a huge role in the developing of housing. People who live there, associations, housing associations, private companies, they all play a very big role. So this action plan probably is to how we developed it and how we implement it is also to demonstrate the complexity, you know, how we can manage it or why we still have housing problems, you know, on all the continents. I'm a secretary of an intergovernmental committee on housing and land management. So we have representatives of ministries of housing, ministries of urban development, authorities for land administration, who are working together on these housing land management issues. We're working since 1947, and we started as a committee dealing with the post-war reconstruction of Europe. Of course, many years since 1940s passed, and today topics are very different. Most of the development cooperation on housing goes to our transition countries, which is Central Asia, Caucasus, Eastern Europe. But of course, housing and energy efficiency of housing remains to be a huge issue in all the parts of our region. As Arnaud mentioned, we have 56 member states, starting from the Northern America and ending with Central Asia, which is, you know, quite far to the east. Why we are speaking about energy efficiency? Well, energy efficiency is important for every person in the house because when you have an energy efficient house, you don't pay so much of the bills. You have a good quality of your life. So for us, living in our houses, this is very important. It's very important topic also at the global level because 30% of the consumed energy is consumed by the buildings. And I think about 40% of the emissions actually go from the residential sector as well. So actually, energy efficiency is the cheapest energy source, you may say. So this is why governments who are members of our intergovernmental committee told us that energy efficiency housing actually is a priority topic on which they want to work, on which they want to develop action plan. We also actually just a week ago we have adopted a strategy with very concrete goals and objectives where we want to go with on the energy efficiency. So what concerns the energy efficiency, actually technical solutions exist. I mean, if you go, you open the internet or you go look at publications, lots of companies have developed very sophisticated systems for how to promote energy efficiency on technical level. However, the main challenge is actually the legal institutional frameworks at the national levels, the financing, and also the cooperation. The cooperation between the national governments, the cooperation within national governments, because as you can imagine, the issues of housing and energy efficiency would involve the government's authorities on housing, on financing, on the judicial issues, on the land administration issues. So all these agencies are involved. And while developing and implementing this action plan, we gained experience how to involve different levels of governments in these energy efficiency measures and how to promote actually on practical levels energy efficiency housing. Of course, I would like to notice that also that, of course, lots of challenges remain because it's a very difficult issue. It's a very long way to go. However, I think there are many things already achieved as well. So just to present you this action plan on energy efficient housing. So it is also to introduce application of existing technical solutions, discuss what are the barriers of implementation, and actually, of course, our focus is on the legal institutional issues, since we are a committee of the government authorities. So our focus is on developing legal institutional framework and also facilitating the cooperation between different levels of governance. So to shortly present you the action plan, because we don't have much time, and just to tell you that the action plan is available on our website of the UNECE. Also, there are some of the publications actually available outside of this room, as well as at the exhibition area. So this action plan, UNECE action plan on energy efficient housing, includes 3 policy areas, which is energy efficient governance and finance. And of course, financing is a very important topic. Energy performance standards and technology, and access to energy efficiency and public housing, where public housing, of course, very important. As I mentioned, the topic of governance is probably the key for promoting the energy efficient housing. Because as we see, as we are working right now with many countries, we see that in those countries, citizens in principle can order the energy efficient windows, and do here and there they can do some actions. However, it is impossible to promote kind of globally the energy efficiency if you don't have good laws and you don't have the good institutional structures. And this comprehensive action plan actually gives a systematic overview of what kind of actions needs to be established at the government level. For instance, establish the framework law according to which you actually can develop your very concrete regulations, establish your structures responsible for energy efficiency housing, build statistical databases, because exactly as already discussed, issues of monitoring, evaluation of how these actions are implemented are very important. Developing the financing systems is very important, developing system of subsidies, because energy efficiency is something which is not paying very quickly. So it takes, in some cases, like 8-15 years in order to energy efficiency measures would pay back. So this is some of the energy performance standards. So this is also part of this energy efficiency action plan. The issues of the access to energy efficiency in public housing, and of course this is right now one of the central part of our activities, because the big issue is about poor owners, for instance, who may even have a house, but as in countries in the UNECE region, the cost of the energy efficiency is growing very quickly, because many of our countries are coming from the former Soviet Union, for instance, or from a Soviet bloc where natural resources didn't cost anything. So in some countries, even today, the costs of the utilities is very low, much lower than actually what it costs. Yeah, and so today, as these countries are raising their prices for energy and for the energy consumption, it's a big issue what to do with the poor owners, for instance, who are not capable of paying their energy, electricity bills, for instance. And so this is an issue about how to develop the social housing and how to ensure that you have energy efficient housing and also the affordable housing. So this is probably one of the major issue that we're dealing today, and it's not a secret that, as I think very correctly mentioned here, that in Africa there are many things are developing today and many things are going for better. In Western Europe today, in the economic crisis, there are very many poor people. I mean, statistics show there are many poor people who cannot pay their energy bills. So this is where actually this kind of strategic regional action plans, which allow to bring together the cooperation between international organizations through which governments can exchange their best experiences and also exchange information about the challenges they're facing, and also develop this kind of guidance, international guidance documents, which will help those countries who are in need to develop own actions at the national level. This is all very important. Of course, when we're speaking about cooperation between the national level, international level, the local level, we should not forget that actually implementation of any actions are taking place at the national level. And after we have developed in 2009 this regional action plan for energy efficient housing with a systematic list of different activities, we also, based on that regional action plan and also on different publications where we addressed specific technical issues of energy efficiency, we also prepared a national action plan for Montenegro, for instance, where we also worked together with the government in order to help them how to develop their actions for future investment in energy efficiency. And today you will also hear information about the preparation of the similar action plan for Georgia. When we develop this kind of national actions plan at the national level, we also work to develop capacity, first of all, of the officials who will be implementing and further developing this action plan, and also of the stakeholders who will be involved, which are the private organizations, for instance, the homeowner associations, NGOs, to involve academia, municipalities. So it's a very comprehensive work which we are facilitating actually in the region, and first of all in the countries of the UNECE region. And just to mention you some of the milestones on the implementation of this action plan. For instance, we last year did a regional energy forum in Kyrgyzstan. This year we have implemented this regional forum in Tbilisi, Georgia, where we actually brought all the stakeholders. First of all, representatives of the governments, but also of the NGOs, private organizations, academia. So only in this communication between different sectors, but still with the leadership of the governments, these kind of energy efficiency measures can be implemented. Finishing my presentation, I'm basically making a bridge to the presentation of my colleague Karin Melikidze, who will be telling you about this work on energy efficiency in Georgia. I would like also to mention that besides working with the governments directly to develop new policies and legislation, we also continue to develop a knowledge base for implementation of the action plan. Because, as I said, let's say even in Western Europe, there are lots of issues today. And these issues for those countries also are new, because this economic crisis was something which nobody expected. I mean, very few academics claim they expected that. So also, European countries actually don't know all the solutions to the problems they face. So this is why we're also trying to develop different casebooks, reports, analysis with analysis and the recommendation about how energy efficiency issues could be solved. So this is just a little bit of information, and this casebook, also the draft of it actually is available on our website. We're also establishing right now a regional expert network, so that basically the experts who could organize training capacity building events in different countries. And just again to reiterate that it's a very comprehensive work, working at the regional level, where you need, first of all, the political commitment of the governments. You need to have involvement of the local actors, of all the stakeholders. UN plays an important role because from my experience, the main added value of our work is actually facilitating communication between different sectors. For instance, bringing together ministries of housing, regional development, finances, and helping them to organize communication cooperation between themselves, also helping them to involve NGOs and other stakeholders. And so also our shared work on developing the knowledge based on that. So thank you very much for your attention, and probably the next will be a very concrete example of Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gulnara. I propose that we jump directly to the next presentation, as we are running a little bit late, and you will be able to ask the questions after Karin's presentation. So Karin is the director of the Sustainable Development and Policy Center in Tbilisi, Georgia. This center offers assessment of energy efficiency opportunities with a specific methodology, systematic approach to energy flows. Currently, Karin Melikidze is working a lot with UNECE in implementing this action plan and disseminating the knowledge that we developed together. Karin, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I would like to bring to your attention presentation titled Towards an Action Plan for Energy Efficient Housing in Georgia. Some statistics about Georgia. Georgia is one of the former Soviet republics, and you can see that we are the Black Sea basin country, and our neighbors are Azerbaijan, Turkey, Armenia, and Russia. Capital is Tbilisi. Population is around 4.5 million in all Georgia, and you can see other information which is on this slide. What's going on? Also, some information about energy statistics is given on this slide, and economic statistics. Mostly, you can see the figures of annual electricity consumption, gas consumption, as well as GDP. I would say that in Georgia, the building sector accounts around 40% of energy consumption in the total country's energy balance. And this happens because the majority part of our building sector has been built during the Soviet era, when the energy efficiency was not considered as a concept. It was, they were built around 70, 80 years, so energy efficiency was not very common understanding at that time. And we do not have adopted standardization documents yet. But we're expecting the first draft construction codes, which should constitute from two major parts. It will be construction and spatial planning, and we're expecting that construction part will highlight will reflect the energy efficiency. We're expecting this draft in December 2013. Also, a very positive moment which happened in 2007, Georgia has adopted law on house ownership that lays down foundation for forming house-owned association management in Georgia. Gulnara very in a very comprehensive way explained components of energy efficient action plans. And I would say that mostly I can say that it consists from two major parts. The one and the most important is the policy level, and the second is technological level, technical issues. So what we did already in 2011, Tbilisi city signed the Covenant of Mayors initiative, and it was a step for development of the building sector SIAP for Tbilisi city. Of course, it happened with the helping hand of USAID, Natalie, and my organization was involved in development. Actually, we were responsible for development of the building sector plan. The positive thing which happened that the government of Georgia started to understand that things should be changed, and they requested assistance of UNECE for development of the National Action Plan. And the fourth international forum took place in Tbilisi in September 2013, which was followed up with the National Work Plan, which was a very important step to bring all stakeholders together and to work on the priorities of the country and to better understand where we are and where we want to move. Main challenges that have been outlined for Georgia through this national workshop event, that we have to improve laws and regulations, financial mechanism, which also is you will agree that it's a policy component, management and rehabilitation of housing stock, improvement of technical capacities, and rising public awareness of citizens. I will briefly explain the strategy of Tbilisi SIAP. As I explained, that we mostly concentrated on the technical measures, mitigation measures, because under Covenant of Mayors initiative, we had to follow all methodology which was needed for implementation of this working document. And we mostly targeted two subsectors, municipal buildings and residential ones. As I told, and I will repeat once again, that the buildings are not constructed in an efficient way, so they are source of the major heat losses in the country. And of course, action plan reflected these particularities, and the first measure is upgrading of the insulation of the building envelopes, because each measure has its boundaries, how much we can reach and how much can we save. The most important is upgrading, which can give you briefly around 40%. You can see the list of measures, and our municipality also is willing to implement as much as possible pilot projects, because with the absence of law, they do not have much jurisdiction to extend on the residential buildings. That's why they are helping and citizens and implementing as much as possible pilot projects, because when Georgia gained independence in 1991, government did not provide any coordinated approach to citizens. What kind of systems they should use, what kind of recommendation, because we had at that time, during the Soviet era, we had centralized heating systems which were gone with the gaining independence because government wasn't able to maintain these systems. Of course, we outlined in this work policy which should enable implementation of Sustainable Energy Action Plan for Tbilisi city. And you can see that firstly we outlined regulation and environment for this regulation, also providing opportunities to, for working with the banks, for providing financial support. This means some kind of soft loans for energy efficient technologies. Setting the best practice examples, generating citizen support, and engaging citizens in implementation of these measures. You can see the electricity consumption in Tbilisi and natural gas consumption in Tbilisi, mostly from residential and municipal sectors, and the total value. And you can see that it is a big. There are big numbers. Also, under Sustainable Energy Action Plan, we had to develop the bow scenario, business as usual. If nothing will be changed, we are forecasting how the energy consumption will be increased for the residential buildings and as well as for municipal buildings. And it was also one of the requests of the methodology to present this, to convert this energy consumption into the carbon dioxide emissions and to extend this forecast in the terms of the carbon dioxide emissions, how they will increase. And you can see measures for the building sector. In this summary table, you can see these values, how much we are reaching. We decided to target 20%. And we are reaching this number in reduction of the carbon dioxide emissions. This was the request of the Covenant of Mayors initiative. And we received 24% totally from the main sectors. I mean, the transportation sector also was included in Tbilisi City CIAP, as well as municipal outdoor lighting. As I told you, we are concentrating on the pilot projects, and this is the latest work which was conducted with the guidance of Tbilisi municipality. I conducted energy audit. Energy audit is a tool for verification of energy efficiency. And you can see this is a building which consists from the similar blocks, A block, which is on the right for me, and the left, the similar, absolutely. Municipality had vision that we have to monitor energy data. That's why they decided to upgrade the A block and not to upgrade during the first year the B block. But we decided to change the double glazed to windows and on the double glazed with metal plastic frames, and to install the efficient space heating system for the whole building, which is supplemented with the solar collectors for domestic hot water supply. You can see measures for A and B blocks. I explained them. And energy audit results. You can see that on the behalf of the energy saving, we are getting payback period for the A block 8.7 years, because it's very important to implement all measures all together, like package. In this way, you can save as much as it's possible. And you can see, I think that it's a bright example. In the B block, we have only 8.4 years. And measures, how I would say that we are using for conducting energy audits the special Norwegian program, NC, which was provided for us by NC International. And we are preparing cost-benefit analysis for each measure. And when you can see that for walls we are reaching, for instance, as a payback period like 10.1, and for floor we are having 3.7, but totally we are reaching 8.7. Because like package, it gives us this result as a package. And you can see for the B block, the payback periods, also very important value, is a net present value quotient, which gives you understanding of how you are how you are forecasting your value with discount rate in future. And result of the simulation model, you can see for the A block, this actually are three columns. First is actual use of energy in the building. I will explain this because I omitted this in the beginning. You know, when we lost these heating systems in Georgia, I told that people started to organize the heating in their apartments by their own, based on their understanding and financial possibilities. So mostly what they can do, they can heat only one room in their apartments. And on the left, the actual column shows that the possibilities how they can heat. Column baseline shows that exactly by thermal properties of the building, how much building should use. And on the right, after measures, after implementation of measures for the A block, we can see how we are reducing energy consumption if we implement these measures as a package. And for the column B, without upgrading, the after measures, we can see how this is rising because the main component, upgrading insulation, is omitted. And in carbon dioxide emissions, we can see that annually we can save 78.6 tons per year emissions if we implement these measures. I would say that my organization is very actively implemented in energy analysis in my country, and we were involved in one of USAID projects, which is integrated resource management in pilot watersheds. They will be selected targeted watersheds, and we were actually responsible for the energy component, and we developed software, mostly it's a planning tool, and identified the ways how the energy is consumed in the small regions in my country. And we identified that the people mostly rely on firewood, and unfortunately, they are not using this fuel wood in efficient way because Gulnara said this already, and other speakers also mentioned this because they do not use energy efficient equipment. I mean, the wood stoves are not efficient. And we can cut this energy consumption around 50%, maybe, because if we will change these inefficient wood stoves on the efficient ones, we can reach these results. You can see this municipal energy passport planning tool, which this is main menu, which can be used as a database, and also it can give you opportunity to create business as usual scenario and energy efficient action plan. So this is the last slide, explains all possibilities of the planning tool. And I would say that we conducted training for municipal staff, and they are very grateful for this aid because it's very friendly software, and it's they started to realize that they can make changes in our country. So here are the main basic characteristics which I already mentioned. And also we can create on consumption level the energy balances to better assess dimensions how to shape the energy action plan. So this is what I wanted to present to you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Karin. Of course, this is not something that you can implement directly in Nairobi, where, at least as far as I'm concerned, I'm more trying to protect myself from heat than keeping it in the building. So, if there is any questions on Gulnara's, and yes, madam?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. On access to energy-efficient housing, you have not given room to public, to private sector intervention. You have only talked about the government building houses for the people, and you have not mentioned anything to do with how you will maintain them, disaster management. You know, I believe that these houses you are talking about are those houses made of wood. And these houses can be burned down within a very short time. Disaster management. Why have you not talked to us about it? And why have you not mentioned private, public sector, private partnerships? These days, people are going to partnerships. A government cannot build houses alone. In Kenya here, my country, you cannot build houses alone, especially right now. There are many the housing units which are coming up in Nairobi and its environments, surrounding areas. It's private sector driven. Yeah, why are you not talking about partnerships? Partnerships. Asanteni.
Madam, thank you very much for your question. I would say that in Tbilisi city, mostly we have buildings, concrete buildings, not wood buildings. So also the time limitation of my presentation cannot provide all insights of this work. My website was mentioned, and you can go and see in detail. This work is uploaded on my website. I would say that you are absolutely right that building sector consists from subsectors. We covered 2 of them. And the residential sectors, under the law in Georgia, mostly people became owners of the apartments. So that's why it's important to implement the policy component. And when I'm saying about opportunities which can, within the single framework, and Gulnara also mentioned this, that these components, like policy components, consist mainly from 4 main directions, and they are absolutely applicable for private sector, because without government, even private sector will not be able to implement many things. These are policy issues, these are financial support with the soft loans. This is also the planning instrument for government, and the last one, the rising public awareness. And if they are integrated, they can work together, and people from public sector, from private sector, they can all benefit from this. Thank you.
Management, disaster management, whether it is concrete or it is
This is
wood.
absolutely concrete work. When we identified measures for our country, not even for a country, for our city. But I would say that each country should follow the examples, their experience, and outline their approach. We only can say and speak in general terms. When we are presenting our work, we are saying as a result of our experience, as a concrete result which we reached in our country, based on our particularities and now our priorities. And this is something like model, but you have to identify your national levels.
Well, first of all, just to mention that the public-private partnership presentation will be right now, so this is why we did not focus on it in our presentations. Secondly, I did not focus, for instance, my presentation on this topic because, yes, private sector is very active in the construction of housing, in repair of the housing. However, they would work much more efficiently if we have an efficient government sector who provides the enabling environment for their work. And this is a major challenge. This is a major challenge. This is why, I was trying to highlight this topic.
I think we have another question on the right.
Okay, mine is not a question, but is so I want to tell the people that who have come here about the things of the housing. Actually, it is good to learn from Kenyans, the way Kenya today we are doing, because we know Kenya in Africa, we have the best things that people can learn, not only other countries, because when we talk about the development of the houses that are being built here in Kenya, even I think is one of the best houses compared even to countries such as America, the countries that are developing. So it's good to learn sometimes from we Kenyans, because we believe that Kenyans are doing the best thing. Thank you.
Okay, last question or statement?
Okay, my first statement will go towards Madam Karin. Kindly share with us the municipal energy planning software tool that you talked about, and something else I want to rectify in regards to housing in Kenya. I really have a different opinion. We have a problem with the housing here in Kenya, even in planning. The entire city is a sham. The government, it's not doing a bit good job, and you understand the politics within the government, within the country. So I really think we'll be lying to ourselves saying that Kenya, we are in a good standard position. We have good houses in China. We have best practices in India. We have other countries in South Africa with good planning, Indonesia and other countries. So let us study more about issues on housing. Thank you.
Karin, can you
Yes,
answer on the software?
you spoke something, it was partly statement, and I can answer on one of the questions that what we developed under my organization as DEP Center was subcontracted by USAID, and this will be public domain. So you can find this. Simply we finalized right now this work, and then very soon it will be open for official use for everyone. It will be, USAID has idea to provide this as a public domain. And of course, sure, you can benefit from it. And another, your statement mostly, then question, of course, you have your experience. And for me, as a specialist in building physics, I understand that you maybe have to concentrate more on cooling systems and provide some kind of mitigation measures to reduce load of the cooling systems. I'm not very familiar with the Kenya climatic parameters and with your experience with your historical experience in the construction sector, but I'm sure that everywhere we can find an opportunity for energy efficiency, because what is energy efficiency? Energy efficiency, there are plenty of definitions of energy efficiency, but if you ask me which one I like mostly, for me, what does it mean? It's synonym. It is efficient use of technologies. So you can get result, but to make these technologies work, you have to bring policy. So, thank you.
Thank you, Karin. Yes, here we are presenting processes, ideas, approaches. Of course, they are not applicable everywhere, and they are very specific sometimes to our region and to our forest or to our cities. But something that can be widely applicable is the work we're doing on PPPs. So we have the chance to have here Tony Bonici at the end of the table here. Tony is a senior member of the PPP Secretariat in Geneva. He spends a lot of time organizing and delivering training and capacity building on PPPs, and also on advising governments in this regard. So thank you for sharing your experience with us, Tony.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to be here in Nairobi and to be able to speak to you about the global work of the UNECE on public-private partnerships. And here we're talking about essentially physical infrastructure, such as roads, but also accommodation type, such as social housing, hospitals, schools, power plants, etc. The contents of my presentation I will try to cover in the next 15 minutes or so. The objectives of a new initiative that was launched in 2012 at UNECE. It's a global initiative with the support of the other regional commissions, and the UNECE is leading this on behalf of the United Nations system. And this is the United Nations, the UNECE International PPP Center of Excellence. Its targeted achievements by the end of this year. The status of the PPP Specialist Center, so I will dwell a little bit on this. The new synergy between the United Nations and the multilateral development banks through the Center of Excellence. And I will, if I have time, I will also touch upon the work of UNECE on green PPPs. However, before doing this, I wanted to be crystal clear what we are talking about here. Here we are talking about building infrastructure, mainly physical infrastructure. And although there is no universal definition of public-private partnerships, we have reached a working definition, which is there on the screen, which is an innovative, long-term contractual arrangement for developing infrastructure and providing public services by introducing private sector funds, expertise, and motivation into areas that are normally the responsibility of government. And here, one of the key issues in this sentence is public services. We have to keep in mind that we are talking about public services where the government or the public authorities remain ultimately responsible for the provision of these services. We are not talking about privatization. Here we are talking about public services. As we all know, public infrastructure is divided into two parts. You have the economic infrastructure, such as roads, power plants, waste management, water, and then you have the social infrastructure. Here we're talking about hospitals, schools, accommodation type, government buildings, social housing, and also prisons. So there are four key elements into a PPP. It's a long-term contract, which typically is between 25 and 30 years. There's a payment over the life cycle, over the life of the PPP contract. There is an allocation of the risks between the public and the private parties. And crucially, there is the reversion of the asset to the public sector after the contract. Is an alternative to traditional procurement, and you have risk transfer from the public to the private sector, including the cost of design and construction, time overruns, also budget overruns, and you have also the operation and maintenance costs. The UNECE has been involved in this topic for the past 15 years. And during the first 10 years of its work, the UNECE was focusing on a handful of countries who are seriously doing public-private partnerships. But we have seen in the past 5 years, perhaps with the coinciding with the financial crisis, that many countries, many developing countries, transition countries, want and are interested in the topic. We used to say, for governments who wanted to do and to learn about public-private partnerships, we used to tell them, why don't you look at the Brits, the UK, how they are doing it, or why don't you look at the French? But nowadays, it is there are so many countries, including developing countries, including countries in Africa, such as your country, but also South Africa, for example, Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, others, who are developing their public-private partnerships, and we can no longer ignore the experiences of these countries. So that's why we felt, together with other regional commissions, including the Economic Commission for Africa, that it would be best if we establish a center of excellence to collect these international best practices and also to develop international PP standards through the UN system. That's the first objective of the Center of Excellence. The second objective is to assist governments to successfully implement these best practices and the standards. And thirdly, to encourage shared learning, especially between countries new to public-private partnerships and those with mature PPP programs. And here with mature PPP programs, I don't only mean the developed countries in Europe, perhaps Australia or Canada, but also countries such as Brazil, India, South Africa, and others, Malaysia, who have over the years acquired knowledge and experience to share it with other developing countries. This is the website of the Center of Excellence, and I would like to encourage you to have a look at it. And as for the achievements by the end of 2013, as I said earlier, one of the objectives is to collect international best practices on sectors such as roads, schools, hospitals. And we found that the most effective and efficient way of doing that was by establishing what we call international PPP specialist centers, which are housed in governments. So there are a number of governments which are hosting these specialist centers, and they are focusing on sectors. So for example, and later on I have a slide on this, we have Morocco, who is interested in hosting the specialist center on renewable energy. The first specialist center that was established was in the Philippines on healthcare. We are very close to conclude with the government of Azerbaijan on the topic of ICT and broadband. The Republic of Korea is hosting the specialist center of what we call green public-private partnerships. So the work on best practice guides already started through the specialist centers, and also one of the targets for this year is to have an operational business advisory board, which is composed of senior members of the private sector, to provide advice to the Center of Excellence, but also to provide advice to countries who request it and who might have some bottlenecks, some problems in their development of public-private partnership, and they need advice from the private sector, who know perfectly well how to take the process forward. So this is a list of the status of the specialist centers. And we have also, of course, the United Nations doesn't work in isolation. We work very closely with our partners from the multilateral development banks, such as the World Bank Group, but also the African Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and others, and who eventually will finance or will co-finance some of these projects. And we see ourselves as working upstream to identify the best practices and to provide assistance and capacity and institutional building to member states, while the multilateral development banks are implementing these best practice models through the financing of the project more downstream. So a few words about the work on green public-private partnerships. We are currently concluding a project in in a number of countries in Asia and in Eastern Europe on identifying potential projects in green technologies, and these are areas such as renewable energy, you have hydroelectricity generation, solar farms, wind farms, energy from waste, from domestic waste, either through incineration and generation of electricity or through the extraction of biogas. Projects also are at the municipal level on street lighting to include, to enhance, to introduce more energy efficient light, but also more intelligent lighting system, such as, for example, dimming the light when it is not used, to have the optimal use of light in our street, but also in transportation, such as innovation in road constructions, light railway, trolleybuses, etc. So the role and objective, as I already mentioned, of the Center of Excellence is to deliver excellence and to deliver better policy and better project capability, to achieve better education for all these, touching upon some of the UN MDGs here, higher quality and more accessible healthcare, energy for all, renewables and energy efficiency, but also the concept of smart cities, essentially making our cities more accessible, manageable, communicative, and citizen-minded. These are some shots from a brochure which I can show you here, which is you can download from our website, but is also available in the exhibition space. So please come and visit us, and you can take this brochure with you. And in conclusion, here you have some nice people from our team, and also some ugly people also. So. What we are trying to achieve here, the main objective of the United Nations work on public-private partnership is essentially to improve the public services to the citizens. We work with governments, we work with other stakeholders, but the main focus of our work is always the citizen. And we always look at how, through public-private partnership, we can improve the services, we can make it more effective, more efficient, improve the quality, such as, for example, of the water, if it's a PPP in water, and that is what drives our program forward. So I think I will leave it at that, and if there are any questions, I will be happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see already 2 questions, so Madam in the front, please.
Thank you. My name is Francis Kaswahili from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, representing private sector. Actually, my question I have to redirect to UNECE. Some European countries that are introducing the housing of prefabricated, and a good example that they're trying to introduce like Brooklyn. But there's a street built by prefabricated houses. So is that among of standards of the UNECE? That's my question.
So our experts are discussing. Maybe Gulnara, can you answer the question? Thank you.
Well, this issue of prefabricated houses, it's of course it's developed and stand here also, but also in Europe as well, and it's actually the quality of this prefabricated houses also is an issue which kind of our committee is discussing. One issue actually was that we had an exhibition in the garden of the Palais des Nations in Geneva of prefabricated houses, which is kind of temporary housing for disaster risk areas, and of course for those areas especially the quality of these houses is very important. Yes, of course, prefabricated houses is a very important topic because this is usually low-cost housing, which is very efficient. You can actually build them very quickly. What is important to sustain the high quality of this housing and also to basically have a good communication and promotion of this already high quality housing. Yeah, so this is important topic, and I would say it's a rather new topic for us. But it also came to the agenda because of the more difficult economic situation in Europe as well, because this is where the low-cost solution, more affordable housing, is on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Peter from Panesma, Africa. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for the presentations. And I've also learned that Europe is doing well in terms of clean water management and conservation. My question, before I pose my question, I also want to thank some of the Eastern Europe countries that are now trying to settle up after emerging from conflicts. And congratulations that Bosnia-Herzegovina is headed to the 2014 World Cup this next year. My question is, how can Africa and Asia and South America learn from some of your best practices on housing and forestry management to help the population of those continents? Please, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Of course, it's really important. I think, of course, there's things to be learned on both sides. We have a long tradition of forest management in Europe and North America. This doesn't mean that in the EC region there are no problems. I was mentioning those two countries, but locally there are still illegal logging, deforestation, and forest degradation. So we are not Western European very used in dealing, for example, with illegal logging, and I think other countries from Africa, Asia, or South America have more experience than us with that. So I think we can also gain from each other. There are some global forums that exist already, but that are very policy-oriented and high-level. Maybe not too many are focusing on concrete solutions. So that's what we tried today. We were presenting you with some experiences and some approaches. Of course, as I said, again, they are not applicable everywhere. But a way of exchanging easily is to get delegates from other continents attending our meetings. That's what we are doing from time to time when we get support from countries for that. For example, 2 years ago we organized Forest and Water Week, where we had North Africa participating strongly because we had funding to bring those people to Geneva. And it's also when we can also organize in other parts of the world meetings. That's the case of the PPP facility. It's also the case of our colleagues that work on agricultural standards. For housing, I will let Gulnara answer.
Well, I just give on housing, probably housing and land management. I would just give a concrete example that, for instance, the Regional Commission for Africa were discussing the fact that we have those intergovernmental structures, like this intergovernmental committee and the working party on land administration, which are important because still the policy making is done by the national government. So we will probably have a joint session at the World Bank Land and Poverty Conference in April together with the Regional Commission for Africa, where we'll discuss how actually the Regional Commission for Africa could use our experience of the committee working party in organizing this policy legislative work on the land, cities development and housing. Moreover, I would like to say that on other topics, at the UNECE, you actually meet lots of experts and decision-making from Africa and Asia. I mean, just last week we had a big meeting on water, and actually this information, we will have a presentation, or the UNECE presentation tomorrow at the directors' meeting. For instance, the Water Convention is, UNECE Water Convention now is a global instrument, so actually quite many representatives of the ministries of the environment from Africa, from Asia attended, and there is a very intensive cooperation taking place. There is also the EU Water Initiative, about which I will speak tomorrow as well, where actually there are regional groups for Europe, but also for Africa, and they meet regularly and exchange experiences and learn from each other. And I also agree with Arnaud and with people who are making comments. There is a lot to learn in both ways, because in Africa, for instance, you are developing low-cost, very innovative solutions about which maybe in Europe we did not think, and then definitely there is a lot to learn from here to Europe as well, definitely. Thank you.
I've seen, yes, sir, with a red tie, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, moderator. And my name is Mwaniki from Kenya. I want to start by thanking all the panelists. They have really shared very eloquently the issues of forest and building in Eastern Europe. And Eastern, to just hand in view of the South-to-South cooperation spirit, that we also have some of the contributions which we can give, for example, from sub-Saharan Africa, is the fact that forests are used as a source of medicine, and a lot of indigenous knowledge has been developed over the years that some of the communities, like the recently voted most happiest community in the world, the Maasai, they don't go to any hospitals because they have developed skills in getting their medicine from the forests and from trees. So that's part of the African perspective. I would also have liked to say that we are also developing a bit slowly the area of carbon credit with respect to forests in the areas of RED, the radius and radius change, AFULU, and the rest. This is in order to fast track the sequestration of carbon, which happens in forests. In the area of housing, we also have indigenous knowledge where our forefathers used to live in huts, which were built such that cooling effect could be achieved. Because in Africa, our problem is how to cool, while in Europe, your problem is probably how to heat. So the dynamics are different, but my learning is that you have a very coordinated and systematic approach. That is something lacking in sub-Saharan Africa. We do our things, but we do not document, we do not put in place center of excellence. We would urge the UNEP and the other UN agencies to help us in this view, so that we can also have institutionalized and coordinated activities and programs which we can share in the next South-to-South Development Expo. Area of housing, as I said, we have, for example, the best example of energy efficient building in Nairobi is the Coca-Cola head office for Central, East, and West Africa. This building is not energy efficient, for example, because we've been using lights the whole day. Should be built such that you do not need lights, you do not need air conditioning, and if you get lights, they should be LED lights. And the construction materials should be such that they do not absorb heat. Therefore, the color should also be not dark color. So we are not seeing the best example here. But across the building, there's another example of a building which has been retro or fitted with the solar panels. The entire building, they are generating 500 kilowatts of electricity, which I'm told has turned this campus into what they call carbon neutral campus. Thank you, that's just my contribution.
Yeah, thank you for this comprehensive point of view on the African experiences and I see that. So yes, please, sir.
Thank you. My name is David Debong from Uganda, and thank you to the panelists for the lots of experience that I think is very reinforcing in terms of how institutionally we should realign our framework with a very clear mandate of government and also a very clear mandate of the private sector in order to deliver on energy efficiency. And even if the stations are completely different in context, but I think the processes is very enriching if we can tap into your expertise and experience. And in terms of technology, I think it would tend more or less to be the same, because energy would be a bottom line factor that will apply across the board. And from my experience in Uganda, even if there is a conducive policy environment to take on energy efficiency, exactly how it should be done is not clear. And I think this is where opportunities exist for collaboration. And I also think that opportunities also exist for collaborating with your private sector, and it would be beneficial if we can tap into your database of the human resource available and also the potential to collaborate with the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Karin and then Gulnara.
Thank you very much for your question and statement. I would say that this very important issue and a very complex issue, energy efficiency. When you start with energy efficiency, we cannot give you exactly a recipe for your country. We simply can show approach, and we can outline the scope of the problems and how we are trying to solve them. So most important here to show approach and from how many components it consists. I would say that you have to, of course, to start with identification of your assessment of more broadly your local materials, to identify them in their efficiency. Also, this gives opportunities for development of your market. And when these issues will be in place altogether, exactly with the governmental approach, with the governmental vision altogether, this will help you to concentrate, also to use your previous experience, because you have traditions living in this country, using these climatic conditions, and you have to build on this and improve these things, using energy efficiency as a tool. So this is my answer in very general terms.
Gunnar?
Yeah, thank you very much for this remark. I think that's exactly as you say, that it is, the processes are the same. And I just would like just to bring an example that, let's say in countries like Tajikistan, which is one of the transition countries, one of the poorest countries actually in our region, in Central Asia, when we're working on developing energy efficiency or other sectors, this is exactly as you said. Initially, you need to start the process with the stakeholders, with the private sectors, NGOs, with an informal group of the key people and key organizations you work. So we are going exactly through the same process. Simply in Europe, it happened many years ago, many decades ago. But in Tajikistan, I did observe that you have to start with this informal work with the key stakeholders, whoever exactly developing the institutional framework, the legal framework, which maybe at the initial point is not working in your country, maybe because there is a need to develop capacity, there is a need to develop a trust to the laws. I think what in Europe exists is trust and a commitment to implement the laws, implement and trust into the government. It's a matter of time. you need to, it will be developing. It's a part of historical process. But I really saw, it was on my eyes, as in countries like Tajikistan, which are still very poor today, how thanks to our cooperation with the UN and the government, it was important, the government was willing, was interested, committed to cooperate. This is very important. And thanks to to this cooperation, we developed laws, the government, the parliament has adopted these laws, and you really see that in the longer run, also for private sector, it's a huge advantage. And this is why we're speaking about this institutional, more systematic work and the legal basis. Thank you.
Thank you. The last intervention for...
Hi, I'm Harvey Garcia. I'm working for the Collaborative Action Towards Sustainable Tourism Project. My question is directed to Mr. Tony. So we are trying to initiate public-private partnership in Tanzania doing solar street lamps. We're trying to work with the hotel sector, but we're having a difficulty in getting buy-in just because the initial cost of investment is really high, especially for the solar street lamps of like really good technology. Can you offer an advice on how to foster private-public partnership in this kind of situation where we're dealing with very specialized sector, which is the hospitality or the tourism sector, and dealing with a specialized technology like solar street lamps?
Thank you for this question. Before I answer, I wanted to ask you a question. Are there existing light fixtures, or this is a new project?
Basically, there's no existing lights in the area. It's in the area of Bagamoyo. It's a very historical town, but at the same time, the whole ruins, the whole town is not lighted, and the hotel sector is distributed around the area.
Okay, so I understand that the beneficiaries will be the residents at the hotel, but also the population. In that case, I would also understand that the municipality doesn't have the capital or the funding to pay the payments over the life cycle of the project. So in that case, we've seen it very successfully working in other countries where the hotels have to make a contribution themselves because they are also getting a service, because after all they are attracting clients. No tourist will go to an area where it's not well lit. So this is really an opportunity, and these are what we call off-grid solutions. Essentially what you have here are very efficient lighting fixtures that use solar energy to power themselves during the dark period. These are also intelligently managed from one area, so from one nerve center. You don't need to control it, but all you need is one person controlling from one nerve center, and they also know exactly where the faults are, and also, for example, how the duration of the light, I mean the lamps, when they are due to be replaced, so you can dispatch maintenance more targeted rather than do general maintenance. So how do we see this normally financed is that the hotels are involved and they have to chip in because they are probably the more they are the most who are getting a benefit out of this service. But it's a very efficient way of doing it, and you are not overloading the grid. So these are off-grid, what we call off-grid solutions. So you are not touching even the grid, and in some areas where it depends on the number of hours where you have the sun. In some areas this is self-sufficient, so you don't need any sort of secondary lighting sources like electricity. because the batteries are 100% powered by solar electricity. And I mean, we've seen it working in many countries, and in this case, as I said, it's the hotels who have to chip in because they are the major beneficiaries of this project.
Okay. Thank you, Tony, for this question. I propose that you discuss together after this meeting. There was a last session on creation and questions to you to collect a bit more information on your needs, but unfortunately we don't have time. I'd like, on behalf of the UNECE, to thank you all for your attention, for your relevant questions, and your valuable inputs. I think the panelists here greatly appreciated the dialogue with you today. We hope that each of you will leave this room with one new idea or one concept, one experience that can be of use. If it's the case, then this was the solution forum, and we hope this is the case. We have heard your needs for sharing together our systematic approach, our documented approach. That doesn't mean that there's no shortfalls in our region, but we have developed some institutional setup that can be of use in other parts of the world, and we are ready and would be happy to share them with you. So should you have any other question or need further information, please do not hesitate to contact us on our email address. They are on the website of the forum that has been created by the Secretariat of the conference. I would like also to thank the interpreters who made our discussion possible today and who helped us to convey our messages and to understand better your needs. So our aim today was to inspire action for greener economies, and as I said, I hope you will come back with at least one new idea. Thank you and have a fruitful conference.
Congratulations on having great deliberations today. At this point, we would like to recognize our solution presenters for their contributions. These awards are being presented to our distinguished panelists in recognition of their special contribution and strong commitment to South-South and triangular cooperation. I would like to ask Weiping Zhao, Director of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, who has worked very hard organizing this expo, to join us on the podium, well, I think it's better here, to present the awards. The awardees are Mr. Arnaud Brizet. If you would come down in the front, then we'll do a group picture. Mr. Patrick Sieber. Mr. Tony Bonici. Mr. Branko Glavanijic, sorry. Ms. Gulnara Roll. And Ms. Karine Melikidze. Karine. You're welcome. We have an additional special award to be given to UNECE. This year, it was especially difficult to choose recipients for the 3 major annual awards. In recognition of their outstanding contributions to South-South and triangular cooperation, a one solution from this solution forum that had stood out will have to be recognized. May we call on the stage the International PPP Center of Excellence of UNECE, represented by Mr. Tony Bonici. The United Nations Economic Commission for Europe's International PPP Center of Excellence is a global leader in preparing international PPP best practices and standards. Uniting the interests of the private sector and its technical and management expertise and financial power with the interests of the public sector, which often lacks resources but can channel private expertise towards the fulfillment of public needs, places PPPs in that unique space where interests coincide and where great benefits can result. The ICOE guides governments on both the procedures and processes to adopt and also on the specific models to implement in various PPP sectors and subsectors. The solution focuses on 3 areas: the PPP product, its dissemination, and its sustainability. So we want to thank all of you for participating, and we congratulate you. And we would also like to do a group photo. So if you could come down, we'd appreciate it.